This is a F2, a really fun to fly fighter kite that I just made or just created and have made one so far. And I made it with the idea that, unlike the way I often do, I often make like this a template for the kite so that I can make more than one and not have to draw each one individually onto the sail material. So if you are not interested in doing that, then I'm going to show you how I would go about drawing the kite plan right on the sail so that it's quick and easy to do. It uses two pieces of carbon fiber rod. One of them is for the spine, right here. It is 1.5 millimeters in diameter, or you could use a 0.06-inch diameter rod instead. They're very similar in diameter. The bow, which fits right up in here, is 23 3/4 of an inch long and is made of 1.3 millimeter diameter carbon fiber rod, or you could use a 0.05-inch diameter carbon fiber rod. Both of those are very, very similar, and the kite would work equally well with either. Now, first thing I do when I make a kite is I get my materials prepared in advance as much as I can. Now here is the spine, and on a carbon fiber spine, you need to have a tension line that will allow you to put a bend in the upper part of the spine. To do that, you need to be sure that when you tie it, it under tension, it doesn't slip. What I do is I wrap a piece of thread around the area I'm going to tie the tension line to near the nose up here and just below the wingtip line, which is the place where a line connecting the wingtips crosses the spine. So right below here, I would tie another one. So I would wrap a piece of thread around there 3 or 4 times, tie it, same up here, and then I would put glue on it, either T8000 or super glue. Let that dry, and then that will be the stop that will prevent the tension line from slipping once you build the kite. So that's the first thing I do. And I also cut out the length that I want for the bow. The spine is 17 1/4 inches long, and the bow 23 3/4. Now on the bow, I mark the center line with a white marker, and I locate 1.5 inches away from the spine on both sides, put a mark. That's where my upper bridle will connect. So I already know that. So rather than drawing around this, we're just going to draw the kite. And because I'm using a cutting mat and I'm using polyfilm for my sail, and often when I use polyfilm, I hot cut it, which means I have to use a piece of glass underneath the sail material to cut it. With this, I can just cut it with a razor blade or a utility knife with a sharp blade. But polyfilm has a tendency to get very, very tiny nicks in the cut edge that you cannot even see because of the way you may hold the knife or stop the knife along the cut. And that can result in serious damage to the kite while you're flying it. So to prevent that, we're going to use tape. I use packing tape, but you could use Scotch tape. Uh, The packing tape's 2 inches wide. The Scotch tape, I would use 3/4 inch wide, maybe ½ inch wide, something like that, to help make the kite much more durable. So the first thing I do is I get my ruler and I'm going to put the spine line right on this number 12 here on my cutting mat. So I drew the line there, as you can see. And then I measured the spine, 17¼ inches, put a mark, and I measured down from the nose 7¾ inches to where the wingtip line is. And then I drew my wingtip line right here. And the distance between the wingtips is 21½. So I've hit a mark right there. Now all I need to do is to connect all those lines, and I will have pretty much my kite drawn with a couple little details I'll need to add. Now that the kite's drawn, I added the hem to the bow, which are flaps right here that I have on the diagram. These are 5¼ inch long, starting from the wingtip going towards the nose, 3/4 inch here, 3/8 inch there, and that's the flap. And we'll fold this over eventually to hold the bow in place securely. Now, adding the tape is an important element in order to make the durability of the kite really good. And if you're new to flying fighter kites, I will guarantee you that crashing is going to be a big part of your learning. It certainly was for me. I'll tell you that. So a durable kite is really important in the beginning, especially because otherwise you get so frustrated and you may just give up. And that'd be sad. Flying fighter kites is a lot of fun and you don't want to miss it. So I'm going to add tape. And where I'm going to add it is on the inside of the line here of the kite outline, about 1/4 to ½ inch inside the line from the nose to about 1/4 inch into this flap right here that we drew. That's the length. I'm going to put it there. And then I'm going to put a little thinner amount, maybe 1/4 or 3/8 wide on the inside of the line along this trailing edge here. This is called the trailing edge, this is called the leading edge, and this section is called the nose leading edge. Now, I use packing tape. Packing tape's roughly 2 inches wide. Now, how would I cut the tape to fit if I'm going to make it only ½ inch or so wide? I don't. I put the tape on full width. And when I cut the sail out, I cut the tape and the sail at the same time. So I don't have to worry about being really precise about where I put that tape. It's going to overlap the line on purpose. And I'll show you how I do that. This is a piece of packing tape I just got off of my packing tape reel, or whatever it is, tool, I guess. And I just pulled off a section that's longer than this distance here. And though this is clear, you're probably going to have a hard time seeing it, unfortunately, but I'm going to line this up to be about 1/4 inch inside this first line for the tab, and about 1/2 inch, I'm just going to eyeball it, over the line into the kite itself and press it down. Now that tape, if it's pressed down well, will really do a good job of reinforcing and strengthening this leading edge. I'm going to do the same thing here, and then I'm going to do the same thing along the trailing edges. along the trailing edge here. This is quite a long piece of tape, and I'm just going to eyeball it again, make it about between a half and 3/8 of an inch inside the line onto the kite sail. After the kite's cut out, that'll be the kite sail. And I'll do that on the other side as well. Now, when you put the tape on, even though it's not critical how wide you make it exactly, it's more important that whatever that width is on the right side be the same on the left or close. That's the only critical part. Now, the first thing I install onto the kite sail is the bow right here. But because the bow is under tension all the time, I created a piece of cardboard here, a strip about 2.5 inches, and I marked exactly where the wingtip is supposed to be here, which is 21.5 inches. And this will allow me, and I marked the center line here so I could line that up with my spine line. And then I'm just going to use masking tape, and I'm going to tape that directly to the sail once I get it positioned, because this will allow me to precisely locate the bow into the kite in the right position. That's in position, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick the ends of the bow into those notches, and that gives me the perfect place for my bow. On this, what I use is T8000. It's a contact kind of cement, but any contact cement or any glue that will bond well to the carbon fiber will work just fine. What I'm going to do is put glue all around the circumference of the rod, right up to about 6 inches, a little bit beyond this tab here on both sides. And when I do it, I just put the glue on the rod, and then I use a piece of foam, sort of like a pipe insulation foam, fairly stiff. And this is it here. And then I just rotate the rod and kind of lightly rub the glue to make it more uniform around that part of the bow. And I do the same on the other side. I just put the bow here, give me a rough idea of how far I want it to go, and put the glue on it here. As you can see, it's not just perfectly glued, and using the foam helps to make it more uniform. So I'll do the same thing here. Now, this part, you might get your fingers a little bit sticky with the glue. I know I do. But you put one end of the bow in one of the notches, and then you put the other end in the other notch. You hold the bow above the sail while the ends are in those notches. And then you just let it drop down onto the sail. And I'm going to use some of my, one of my favorite tools, I guess you'd say, wax paper. And I'm going to put a little piece of wax paper on top of the glued areas here. And then I'm just going to weight them down a little bit with a roll of tape here, so that they will dry correctly. Now we have to let this dry, and this is one of the longest parts of, or one of the reasons making a kite might take longer than just an hour and a half or so, because it takes the glue about 2 hours thereabouts to dry completely, or completely enough to be able to continue making the rest of the kite. So we'll let that dry.